and welcome back to the channel. And if you're here for the very first time, it's an absolute pleasure to meet you. I'm Jane. My husband Mike is behind the camera. We're British, early retirees. We've got no debt, we've paid off the mortgage, and we live a thrifty, frugal and money-saving life here in Brittany in northwest France. And every Wednesday, we bring you a mid-week money chat. Now this week, we were given a question basically about how did I afford this? How did I budget for this? And there's many other things that we buy as well that you might wonder, how do thrifty and frugal people get the money together to make a major purchase for something like this? Do frugal people spend money? Yes, of course they do. I know because I get the comments that I know people think that I'm not frugal enough. I think they would rather have me, I don't know, living in a trailer, in a caravan, in a field, collecting rainwater with a composting toilet and, you know, living off the land, and everything I owned came from a charity shop, or anything I ate came from dumpster diving. And I think I'm just not frugal enough for some people, and I get that. It's okay. I've always said to people, I'm way more frugal than some people and I'm way less frugal than some people. But yes, of course, frugal people spend money, but we spend money in a very old-fashioned way, just like people did in the past. We own less, we spend less, we buy less, and we save up for stuff. But yeah, of course we own stuff. So let's answer your questions. What have we spent money on? We've spent money on renovating our house, and we used the money from the sale of our house in the UK and did that here. Now, what else have we spent money on? But we've saved up for these things. We had the front of our house landscaped, we've had a driveway put down, we've had a patio built, we had fences put up and a gate put up. And the driveway, the patio, the fences and the gate came to just under €10,000. I bought a long arm sewing machine, a handy quilter Moxie, which is a bottom price machine. When I bought it, that was $5,500. Again, we saved up for it. We bought a lawnmower, a ride-on lawnmower. It was $2,500. Again, we saved up for it. We bought chainsaws. We've got 2 chainsaws now. It's about €1,500 for the 2 of them. And we bought a hydraulic log splitter. That was about, it was €650. Buy all those now these days, those prices will have gone up, but that is what we paid. And for all of those, we saved up to pay cash for them. So how do frugal people do it? How do frugal people reach their savings goals? Well, first of all, with any item at all, I'm going to use the example of my long arm sewing machine. For years and years and years and years, I didn't have one. I just used a regular sewing machine to do all of my quilting. And then Handy Quilter brought out the Moxie, which was half the price of anything else they did. So previously, if I wanted a long arm sewing machine, I'd have had to pay somewhere about between £12,000 and £15,000. And then they brought out this bargain basement one. I would call it like the Dacia of sewing machines. It does what you need it to do. It stitches 3 layers of the quilt together, and I'm a happy bunny because I've got it. But we compromise. If I lived in America, I'd probably have a much better long arm sewing machine, and I'd have bought one second hand. But they are rare, absolutely rare here in France. There's no dealers or anybody around here, and I actually bought mine from a shop in Paris and had it delivered to me. So they're not a common thing. So when we set our heart to buy something, whether it's a sewing machine, a long arm sewing machine, a hydraulic log splitter, or new gates and new fence, we set ourselves a savings target. It took us a good few years to get the work done outside. We'd had a garden sinking fund, and that money rolled over each year until we had enough. I had a general savings fund for the long arm sewing machine and rolled that money over. And that's what we do. I'll give you an example. If we set a target to save 5,000 over 3 years, that breaks down to €138.88 per month. And I always put a little bit more into the savings. I'd roll that up to 140 a month and save that over the 3 years. Now this year, we've got no major expenditure at all. Next project is going to be finishing off our barn and landscaping around it, getting in a terrassement company to come and do the work around the barn. So it's just like outside the house, but that is going to be two years away yet. And we just keep putting the money aside and we just keep saving. The next question I'm going to ask is, how do we keep on target to achieve those savings goals? Because it's very easy to let it slip and not put the money aside. Well, first of all, every single month our average income after all taxes and deductions is $2,500. We put aside 20% of that, and that works out to be $500 a month. So you can see that's $6,000 a year. Over a couple of years of putting that money aside, that's €12,000 in 2 years. We then have 6 no-spend months a year. So on average, we have about €200 a month as discretionary spending. So if you take €200 and don't spend that for 6 months, that's another 1,200. So we've turned that money into more savings and we put that aside. We keep our bills extremely low. We haven't sat in a restaurant, we haven't eaten out since August last year on our wedding anniversary. So we don't do those kind of things. I haven't had takeout since 2018. 2018 was the last time I had any takeout. We don't regularly go out and have coffee. And if we do meet up with friends and have a coffee, I usually have a tall black coffee, a café latte, and that's €1.50. I think I can push €1.50 once in a while. So we track all our spending, we record everything that we spend, every single receipt. So we track everything against our sinking funds. And I'm also looking at it, we're infrequent purchasers. We're not one of those people who've got, Amazon coming to the door on a regular basis. We don't buy very much. The things that we bought are things that we need. The only folly that I have is my long arm sewing machine. And that in my retirement has given me untold joy, and it is important to do things that we like doing. And also we keep our bills low, so we're not big electricity consumers. We only heat our house with wood. It costs us €600 a year to heat our house. So you can see there, that's how we work towards achieving those savings goals, even though in comparison to some people, we've got a pretty low income. Someone asked me this question, and I think it's important to discuss this. It's, how do we decide if it's okay to spend? How do we decide if it's okay to spend our savings? And I think there's something you need to know about us, about our pensions and our income. The starting point is we have our income from YouTube. We take a lot of time to make these videos, and we put out 3 videos a week, which are free to you to watch. We don't have Patreon, we don't have Buy Me a Coffee. We make money because when you let the adverts roll, that's how YouTube creators get an income. YouTube take 50% of the money and we get 50% of the ad revenue. We also have index-linked pensions. Those are not social security pensions. We will get those at 67 years old. Those are our pensions that we paid into with our jobs, and they're index-linked. Last year, our pensions went up by 10%. This year, our pensions have gone up by 6.7%. So those are different from some people's pensions, which is a drawdown pension, where you have a lump of money that you've invested and that each year you draw down an amount of money. We don't have those types of pensions. Next, we have a fully funded emergency fund that we have built up well over 10 years. So we have 1 year's amount of savings, which would cover our bare bones budget if anything happened that we needed to use that money. We then have year on year, we have our sinking funds, which is our short-term savings. That's the money that goes in and comes out each year. So we do not touch our long-term savings. We do not touch our short-term savings that go into our sinking funds. And what we also have is an amount of money that we've put aside over the years for anything in the household that might break down. We only keep €2,000 in that, but that would pay for a washing machine, that would pay for a dishwasher, and it has just paid for our water tank. We went away on holiday in May for a week in a cheap little Airbnb on the south coast of Brittany. We came back to water all over the place in our basement, and we've just had to buy a new hot water tank and have that fitted. And now we will need to top up that fund again. So we have our emergency fund in place, we have our sinking funds that roll over each month, we put money in each month, we have a small fund of money that replaces any household items that we don't touch. But our long-term savings, those are okay to spend because we have decided in advance. So like I said, the next major purchase for us is going to be finishing off work around our barn, getting around the barn landscaped, and having new gutters fitted to the barn and actually finish rebuilding the barn. Another question we were asked was, how do we prioritise our spending? What we're going to spend these savings on? Number one is the house. Whatever the house needs, the house needs. The house needs a new roof, that's a priority. It doesn't at the moment, but the house is a priority. Secondly is transport. We always have a savings fund for our next car. We never buy new cars. We always buy second-hand cars. Even if they're 1 year old, we always buy second-hand cars because the person who bought it new took the hit, didn't they, on the loss, on the value of the car. And we save $5,000 every 3 years. That's our aim, $5,000 every 3 years towards a new car. And at the end of the 3 years, we might trade in the car that we've got, add the $5,000 to it, or maybe a little bit more from savings if we needed to, or buy a bit of a cheaper car. That decision can be made later on. The car is fine at the moment. But with that $5,000 every 3 years, you can see there that's $138.88 a month, but we round that up and we save $200 a month every month towards the next new to us car. Then thirdly is our barn. We have a barn on our land. It's important that we continue to renovate this barn. It's not as much a priority as the house, but that is part of the investment of the whole property. People in France, especially rural France, they can have a house and a barn. The barn is important. Fourth is the garden. We are putting in borders and plants and shrubs and trees in the garden. And we set aside $300 a year for buying plants for our garden. So that's an important thing to save for. And last of all is hobbies. So I won't buy any more fabric this year. I don't know if it was last year or earlier on this year. A lady was selling her stash of fabric. She decided she didn't want this massive amount of fabric she had anymore. And I went and spent a few €100 on her fabric. And I bought Moda fabric off her for €4 a metre. It's like I'd robbed the lady, but that's what she asked for. So that's the last priority. So there you go. That's how we prioritise what we're going to spend our money on. If you know me and you've been here before, you know I do like to be reflective. And as I admit to people all the time, there are people far more frugal than us, and we are far more frugal than other people. We see ourselves as somewhere in the middle. But there are things that we will not compromise on. We will not be cold. We will not eat junk food. We will not go hungry. We will not compromise on our health. And if the house needs something, the house gets it. And yet in other ways, there are things that we don't buy. For us, eating out or buying things from Amazon are not a big deal for us. They're just not important to us. So there we go. We hope that we answered your questions today. If you've got any more questions on budgeting, our thrifty life, what we do or don't spend money on, leave a question below. I'll either answer it directly or I'll put it in another video. Thanks for watching. Thank you to absolutely everybody who leaves a comment. Massive thanks to everybody who hits the thumbs up button. And the biggest thanks to all of you out there, to everyone who lets the adverts roll. Because of you, we can continue bringing you free content for you to watch. And we'll see you soon. Bye for now.